So today I am doing my first trimester video. I really wish that I went back and actually did a first trimester vlog, but at the time I literally didn't think about it, wasn't on my radar. But I am doing a second trimester vlog, so that will be coming. If I keep moving slightly, it's because I'm sat on beanbags, so I'm very sorry if you can hear them. So this video is going to be my first trimester from when I found out right up until 14 weeks, because at 14 weeks was when things kind of changed for me, because my first trimester technically with the scans didn't end until 14 weeks, because long story, but I'll get into that into the video. But yeah, I didn't actually get my 12-week scan until 14 weeks. So I've wrote down a few little notes so that I don't miss anything out. So firstly, I'm going to start with when I found out. I actually found out at 2 AM on the 22nd of November because I woke up with this urge of like, I need to do a test. And considering we weren't actually trying, there was probably 2 times that whole month where I could have fallen pregnant. But one of the times wasn't in my ovulation window, so really there was one time where I could have fallen pregnant. And I haven't mentioned it on YouTube, but on my TikTok I've explained it loads. I actually spent 9 months trying to fall pregnant with Harlow. I say we, me and Ellis. And it took us 9 months to fall pregnant with Harlow, and the negative tests were awful. Like a month after month getting negative tests. It was the worst time of my life. So I honestly was a bit naive and was like, well, I'm not going to fall pregnant anytime soon. We did decide that we wanted another baby, but we wanted to wait until Harlow was roughly about 2.5 before I fell pregnant. Obviously he was 9 months. So there is going to be an 18-month age gap between Harlow and this baby. But I wouldn't change it now, because obviously trying for a baby is the hardest time of your life if you're struggling. And obviously negative tests, like I said, awful. And for me to fall pregnant and it just be that nice, shocked, happy surprise, it was amazing. I actually had these pregnancy tests because Ellis bought me some random pregnancy tests from Home Bargains as a joke one day. He went to the shop to get us some drinks and came back with these pregnancy tests as a joke because I was very hormonal, and yeah. So I woke up at 2 AM this day, and I'd had these tests for say like 2 weeks, something like that. And I woke up this morning at 2 AM and I was like, I need to just go and do a test. No symptoms, no reasoning to test. I wasn't even due on my period until the next week. So I think I was like 4 days before my period was due. And I did a test and there was the faintest line ever. I'll see if I can find a clip to insert into the video. But there was like literally this faintest line. And I woke Ellis up. I was like, come here right now, look at this test. He was half asleep. He was like, what are you talking about? And I could see this line. So then after a while he could see the line and he was like, yes, but I'm going back to bed. Like, we'll look at it in the morning. So I was convinced from that point on I was pregnant. Like, there was a faint line, I'm pregnant. Obviously I don't know why I'm trusting tests, because during the time of trying for Harlow there was many faint lines and they weren't real. So the next morning I took Blake to school, then took Harlow to Tesco's, ran into Tesco's, got the clear blue tests and came out. I got the early tests because that means the lines would be darker in my logic. So I went to Tesco's, got the early tests, came home, and I literally came in, did the test, and it like came up straight away. On the video you can't really see it straight away, but it is there. I could see it. The video just doesn't show very well. So I'll insert that video now because I was recording myself doing that test. come up straight away. Oh shit. That means, oh my god. And yeah, I don't know, I was actually really happy, even though it came at a time where I really wasn't expecting it. And we were happy for another baby, we just didn't think it would happen that soon. So the day after, I literally can't keep a secret from my mum, I have to tell my mum like straight away. So the day after, I went to my mum's and I just told her, and she was so shocked. But then I could tell by her face, she actually was like a little bit happy. I can always tell, and yeah, she was just completely shocked. But the first thing she said to me, what if it was a boy? Will you be having another one? I was like, no, I'm having 3 and then I'm done. So obviously I have 2 boys already, and if third baby was a baby boy, I would still be done. Even whether it was girl, boy, last baby. And then the next day, because I am literally with my nana every single day, I see her all the time. She is like the main person I go to for everything. I told my nana because I wouldn't be able to hide it from her for very long. So I told my nana. She was very shocked, but again, she was happy, she was fine. And yeah, it was just kind of like the first time I've had like nice responses to a pregnancy, because obviously the first time I was 17. The second time, I think they were just a bit worried because obviously Ellis isn't Blake's dad biologically, and they were worried that I was going to end up single with 2 children, but they were fine really. And this was the first time I had a proper nice like reaction to pregnancy, if that makes sense. Although I hadn't told any of the rest of my family yet at all. I especially not my dad, because my dad doesn't take pregnancy very well. So 1 week before we went to Disney, I had a scan at 6 weeks because I am too impatient. I can't wait till 12 weeks for my first scan. So we went to Window to the Womb and had our first scan, and I was 6 weeks pregnant. You could barely see anything, but yeah, I was 6 weeks pregnant, and hopefully I can insert like a little clip of that scan here.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Then we went to Disney. I was 7 weeks pregnant. That was tough. We had Disney booked for a year, but that was tough. Taking a 9-month-old, well, just turning 10-month-old, a 4-year-old, and flying to Disney, that was actually like really tough being pregnant. But I did it. I was fine. I was feeling sick a lot of the time. Some of the food, I think back to what I ate in Disney, and I think like I feel sick at the thought of that, but I always do in my first trimester. No matter where I go, what I eat, I always think, ugh. And then we flew back from Disney, and the next day I bled a little bit, but I didn't think it was anything to worry about, because when I was pregnant with Harlow, when I was 7 weeks, we went to Portugal, and when I came back, I bled a little bit, and I went for a scan, and they were like, everything's fine. Sometimes the air pressure can cause you to bleed, and it's the same with like women if they come in on their period, or if they're close to their period, the air pressure can just cause your period to come a little bit earlier. So I thought nothing of it, and I actually didn't go get checked, and I know it was probably not great, but I just didn't think anything of it. And then all week I was having some spotting, and I thought, oh, it'll be fine. And then the last day I had this big bleed, and I was so confused as to why I was bleeding. Obviously I was 7, nearly 8 weeks pregnant. I was like, what? And it was a Sunday. So I rang the hospital. They obviously were not fully open because it was Sunday. So they told me to go to urgent care, and I went to urgent care. They booked me in for a scan for the next day, and I literally just had to wait until the next day. They took a wee sample off me, and they said there was blood in the wee sample too. So yeah, I was very, very confused, very scared, and yeah. But I went for my scan the next day, and they actually found that I had a haematoma. At the time, I had no idea what one of them was. I've never heard of it before, never heard of anybody having one before. And it was basically, a haematoma is like a bruise, a bleed, like a pool of blood that sits in between your uterus and your womb, or, you know, not your womb, your uterus and your lining, or something along those lines. I can't remember. So it's basically, it sits in between where your uterus is supposed to attach to you, and there's this like pool of blood, and sometimes the blood can like slip down and out, and that was why I was bleeding. But she also sat and explained to me that a haematoma can increase your risk of a miscarriage. Bear in mind, I was like 8 weeks one day when they did this scan, and I was absolutely past myself, thinking that I was just going to have a miscarriage and that was it. There's nothing that can happen. There's nothing that they can do. She said there's literally nothing they can do but monitor it. So she booked me in for a scan 2 weeks later and just said, like, keep an eye on things, and if there's any worry, anything else, come back. So she also explained that where my haematoma was placed, it was placed at the top, but it was off to the side. So if I bled, it would possibly have just gone round the sac and out and left the baby in the sac there. Yeah, that's it. It was the haematoma is in between the sac and the uterus, I think. But she said that if it was any higher up on top, that if that was to bleed, it would just drag the sac down and cause a miscarriage, basically. And that really, really made me scared, upset, and I was just on edge for weeks. I had another scan booked for 2 weeks later, so 10 weeks one day, and I went to that scan, and I actually had a really negative feeling before this scan. I was thinking like something, I feel like something's off. And I did think for a little bit like, oh, it'll be fine, you know. Hopefully they'll tell me that the haematoma is gone and everything's okay. But I went for the scan and they didn't really say much in the scan room, apart from that it was still there. And when I went up to the early pregnancy unit, she said to me that it's doubled in size. And I was a bit upset at that point, thinking, what? And I was worried in case it carried on all the way through my pregnancy. But yeah, she told me that it had doubled in size and there's literally nothing they can do but monitor it. And obviously 2 weeks' time was my 12-week scan. So she said, just come up to the early pregnancy unit after my 12-week scan if the bleed site's still there and see her, basically. Just before my 10-week scan was Christmas, and on Christmas Day we had planned to tell everybody I was 9 weeks, and I know that is a bit early to tell people, but for me this time I wasn't really bothered about telling people early. Like, it's fine, it is what it is, and if I need to have that awkward conversation of something's happened, something's gone wrong, you know, you just got to do it. And there's no safe week in pregnancy. They say that like 12 weeks is the safe mark. There isn't a safe mark, I don't believe. So telling my family at 9 weeks was just what we did. We told all of my family on Christmas Eve, and that was lovely because we had my brother, my sisters, everyone, and I'll never forget what my brother said. He said, I could tell because your belly was getting fatter, but you weren't getting fatter. I was like, thanks, Matthew. He said, like, your hands and your face, and that wasn't getting fatter, but your belly was. I thought to myself, great, nice one. But yeah, I'll never forget the fact that he said that. And then on Christmas Day, we told Ellis's family, and I gave my dad an envelope to open on Christmas Day, which basically, I'll insert the video of what the envelope said.
Wise men say only fools rush in, but I can help falling in.
But everybody got these envelopes, and yeah, it was just nice. So then on the 27th of December was my booking appointment with the midwife, and that literally took 2 hours. There was so much to go through, especially the fact of my previous 2 births. With Blake, I hemorrhaged straight after delivering the placenta, and then with Harlow, I hemorrhaged on day 8, and then Harlow ended up with an infection on day 9, and we were in hospital with him for 2 weeks because he had meningitis. So there was so much we needed to go through, all like the births, everything like that, family history, illnesses, just took so long. But my midwife this time is absolutely lovely. It's very different to last time. I had a different midwife last time and she wasn't the nicest, I'll be honest. But yeah, this midwife this time is lovely. So then I went for my 12-week scan a couple of weeks later. And when I got there, she told me that the haematoma was gone. And I was so thankful that it was gone and I was so happy. But then it was bittersweet because the baby was lying in a really awkward position. You couldn't get any measurements, you couldn't see anything. I will see if I can find the photo of the scan because it was tragic. It was awful. And yeah, I was very, very disappointed. Everybody on TikTok came at me for that. They were like, we should just be glad that your baby's healthy. It is okay to feel disappointed. I'm allowed to feel the feelings that I feel. And just because somebody's had a worse experience than me does not mean that I can't feel disappointed with my scan. Anyway, I then was rebooked for 2 weeks later. So I didn't get a due date on that 12-week scan. We got no measurements, so I wasn't able to have the testing for Down syndrome, Edwards and Patau's, I think it's called. And yeah, so I just had to come back 2 weeks later, and the 2-week wait was awful because I was very, very obsessed with the nub theory, the Ramsey theory. I just needed to know the gender. Like, I was obsessed with finding out the gender. And looking back now, I feel like the baby was just hiding the nub so that it would be a better surprise, you know, when we had our gender scan. So I went back 2 weeks later of 14 weeks and baby was doing the same again. I was shaking my body, I went for a walk, I did everything possible to get this baby to move, and I'll literally show you, it's just like the double of the scan before, just bigger. Like, so I was really, really gutted actually coming out of this scan, thinking that I would get the nub. I was so excited the day before, like, I will find out the baby's gender. I knew from the nub theories are normally correct. And yeah, I was very disappointed after this one. I couldn't have any of the testing because I couldn't get the measurements. So they said to me, come back at 16 weeks for a blood test and we'll test for Down syndrome. And that was it. To be honest, the testing wasn't really a big thing for me because no matter what, it wouldn't change my view on the pregnancy. But yeah, I was a bit gutted actually, and I felt very deflated, very, don't know, just gutted. But I only had 1 week to wait until my gender scan at this point, so at least I would know the baby's gender within a week. But yeah, that was my first trimester. I feel like it was a very rocky first trimester, very bittersweet. There was lots of ups and downs, but it was nice that it was at Christmas time because we got to tell our family on Christmas Day, and it just felt really nice. And to tell everybody before you're having Christmas dinner, before anybody can question why you're not having any kind of alcoholic drink, it's not a big deal for me because I don't drink anyway. Like, I don't like to have a drink, especially when I've got the kids. Like, it's not a big deal for me. But yeah, it's telling everyone before that was just so much easier because then no one could question why I was feeling a bit sick, no one could question why I wasn't eating much, you know, it was fine. And yeah, but yeah, I don't think I've missed anything out. I'll try and insert every single thing that I've said in this video. Yeah, that was my first trimester. I really hope you enjoyed watching the video. I will be doing a second trimester vlog. I don't know if I'm going to do it in 2 parts or 1 part, but yeah, I didn't actually film much of finding out the gender, but I might do a video on that. I'm not too sure yet. But yeah, if you want to see more of this, then please subscribe to my channel, and yeah, love you all.